Hey, it's Vincent here, and welcome to Vincent Games, your untapped source of Magic the Gathering info, tips, and discussion. On this channel, I focus on deck text and strategy to help us improve and think about the game in a different way. So if you're new here, consider subscribing and become part of the conversation. One of my favourite decks back when original Innistrad was in Standard was Solar Flare. There were many versions of the deck, but the premise was largely the same. It was in Esper colours, blue, black and white, and it controlled the early game with cards like Doomblade, Go for the Throat and Mana Leak. You would then filter through the deck with cards like Ponder, Think Twice and Forbidden Alchemy to put cards into your graveyard. The ultimate goal being to cast or flashback and Unburial Rites to cheat in big creatures like Sun Titan, Elesh Norn or Grave Titan as early as turn 4. With the arrival of Amonkhet, the tools are there to recreate this strategy. But to start with, we need to think about how we're going to replace the linchpin of the deck, Unburial Rites. To do this, we have 2 Liliana Death's Majesty and 1 Ever After. Sadly, none of these cards can be cast from the graveyard, which is a huge disadvantage compared to their predecessor, but they do instead offer something different and perhaps equally powerful. Liliana can not only reanimate a creature the turn she comes down, but she threatens to do so over and over if not dealt with. Not only that, but she makes zombies and helps to fill your graveyard with more targets in the meantime. It's really nice that if you ever have to play her when your graveyard looks a little bit empty, she contributes not only to the board presence, but helps to put stuff into your grave ready to reanimate next turn. Ever After, whilst not as cheap or flexible as Unburial Rites, is a powerhouse. 6 mana to return 2 creatures instead of 1? Yes please, 2 is better than 1, and you can't argue with that. It's maths. But, I hear you ask, what will we be returning? Well, 1 Linvala the Preserver, 1 Demon of Dark Schemes, and 1 Exquisite Archangel. Linvala helps us to preserve our life total, and gives us a 3/3 if we've taken a beating in the early game. The Demon helps us to control the board by killing stuff, and potentially reanimate even more creatures. Exquisite Archangel might be a little bit cute, but it could be a nice extra buffer if things go really bad. Not only are these abilities really nice, but let's not forget that they're all massive flyers, and once on the battlefield, they threaten to kill your opponent pretty damn quick. In addition to these, we have 1 Noxious Gearhulk and Torrential Gearhulk. Killhulk is a nasty creature that can swing games in your favour, wiping out their best creature and gaining you a bunch of life. It is also really funny if you get to bring it back again. Wet Hulk synergises with the many instants in the deck, able to draw you into more gas or do a half-decent Killhulk impression if the need arises. Given the flexibility of recasting your cards, it gets 2 slots. The last 2 creatures in the deck are Angel of Sanctions. As well as the exile effect, if she ends up in the grave with no ways to reanimate her, you can just embalm her and you're good to go. It's nice to have this pseudo-redundancy and reduce the chance of having awkward draws. This also provides the added bonus of having something to do with your mana once you're out of cards. It's also worth noting that like the Solar Flare deck of Standard past, they're all castable without having to reanimate them, which is fantastic. Whilst obviously the deck wants to reanimate stuff, it's perfectly acceptable to simply cast a lot of these threats, and you could be happy to trade them off, lose them to removal, safe in the knowledge that the longer the game goes on, the better it can be for you, as whilst your opponent's resources dwindle, you get to recur your creatures. As for the rest of the deck, we have 3 Anticipate, 4 Censor and 2 Catalogue. Anticipate is no Ponder, and Catalogue is no Forbidden Alchemy, but we have to work with what we've got, and they do help to smooth our draws, and Catalogue puts things we want in the graveyard. Don't undervalue selecting a land with Anticipate. This deck needs to hit its land drops to function, so don't be afraid to take a land over good cards if you need to. Censor is great, catches people out and replaces itself when it becomes a dead card. 1 Fatal Push and 3 Sinister Concoction are our early removal, and Sinister Concoction is great to help us put any big creatures clogging our hand into the grave, ready to be zombified. 2 Grasp of Darkness and 1 Murder rounds our removal out. It's perfectly reasonable to adjust these numbers as you see fit, or based on what you expect to be playing against. However, I've gone for 3 Sinister Concoction, given the fact that it allows us to discard and mill. It's nice to have at least 1 Murder to get back with the Gearhulk. Then we have 4 Glimmer of Genius, 1 Void Shatter, and 2 Pull from Tomorrow. Glimmer of Genius filters our draws and provides card advantage. It also fuels Aether Hub and Demon of Dark Schemes. Returning a Glimmer of Genius with a Gearhulk is the definition of value. It does so much work, it's an easy 4-off. Void Shatter is there as sometimes you just need to say no to something. Maybe there should be more though, as Planeswalkers could be a problem for this deck. Pull from Tomorrow is perfect. It refills your hand and provides another discard outlet. Due to the high mana requirement to get value and the fact you have to take a turn off to cast this, you don't want too many of this kind of effect though, so 2 feels like a nice number. That said, it's not a disaster to cast it earlier so that you can deliberately put something into your graveyard ready to reanimate the following turn. As for the lands, we have 4 Aether Hub, 4 Sunken Hollow and 2 Fetid Pools. Aether Hub synergizes well with Glimmer of Genius and the Demon and feels like a solid inclusion in practically any deck right now. Blue and black are the main colours we need, so the lands are obvious inclusions. I prefer the Battle for Zendikar lands over the Shadows over Innistrad ones, but you could play a mixture of both if you have them and not be too disappointed. I've just found that the combination of battle lands and basic lands means that your lands generally come into play untapped that bit more reliably than with the other lands, especially if you're top decking them late in the game with no other land in your hand to reveal. The cycling lands are awesome and they help if you get flooded, but I don't want too many as they don't play nicely with the battle lands. We also have 4 Shambling Vent, 2 Prairie Stream and 2 Evolving Wilds. Shambling Vent not only gives us a way to cast some of our white creatures if we aren't reanimating them, but is also an awesome man land to have access to. Prairie Stream gives us further access to white along with the Evolving Wilds. Finally, there are 4 islands, 3 swamp and 1 plains, a decent number of basics to really get the benefit from the BFC lands. Sideboards will change depending on your expected meta, but a nice starting point would be 1 Yahenni's Expertise, 2 Flaying Tendrils and 2 Fatal Push for red-white humans or any other aggro deck trying to kill you before turn 5. These are also perfectly acceptable cards versus Mardu vehicles. Kalitas helps here as well and is also nice to board in against zombies, emerge or mid-range creature decks. Lost Legacy is for Rise of the Second Sun and any other problem cards versus Control, along with 4 negates. This deck isn't exactly closing out games quickly, so Rise is deadly if we don't do something to disrupt it. Lost Legacy is also a good way to remove Ulamogs versus the Aetherwork Marvel decks. Lastly, we have 2 cast out against any problem permanents, like Planeswalkers, Gods, or Ulamogs. These could also be Anguished Unmakings, which arguably might be better if you're boarding them in against Ulamog, as cast out could be a liability against any kind of enchantment removal, Ulamog or Worldbreaker. So there you have it. Leave mana up through the early game to disrupt your opponent's board development with a Grasp of Darkness here and a Censor there, while setting up your graveyard with cards like Sinister Concoction and Catalogue to reanimate big, nasty creatures. Or just get to the late game and cast them naturally, ready to bring them back once your opponent kills them. Imagine the sudden despair as you end-step Glimmer of Genius on turn 4, your opponent being fairly confident as you haven't been able to fill your grave that much. But you cast Angel of Sanctions on turn 5 and it gets killed. Cast Torrential Gearhulk on 6, recasting Glimmer of Genius, but they have another kill spell, so they remove the Gearhulk. But then on turn 7 you could cast Ever After and get the Angel and Gearhulk back, recasting another instant. And if they try to kill the Angel for a second time, you can just embalm it next turn. The amount of value gained is insane. This is not that unrealistic of a sequence that you could expect from this kind of deck, and it's one that assumes your opponent drew quite well. But don't get me started on the potential unfairness if you're ever able to untap with an Energized Demon of Dark Schemes. And that's the deck. If you're looking for a way to get the most out of the new Liliana, this is a great place to start. Between the disruption and removal, this homage to Solar Flare has a chance to compete against a wide variety of decks that exist in the format. Try it out at your FNM and let me know how it does. Are there any cards you feel I've missed out? Would you change anything in the deck? Let me hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video and you want to see more like this, then why not subscribe? You'll be able to keep up to date with all my future deck techs and videos as I post them. If you want to see the latest deck tech, then check out the links in the video and description below, and feel free to request any deck ideas that you want to see in the comments section as well. If you're interested in even more MTG content, then I also record a podcast called Glimmer of Genius, the link for which can be found in the description below. If you like what you see, then hit that like button, follow me on Facebook, links in the description as well, or share the video. It shows your support for the channel, keeps the ideas flowing, and gets you involved in the discussion. In the meantime, thanks for watching and stay tuned for more.